All right. Well, welcome back to another episode of 27 Talks, where we cover everything from telecom sales strategy to the tools and trends shaping how businesses connect. Today, I'm excited to welcome Bill Deppen from our team so we can get to know him and learn a few things along the way. I always see him helping our team in the team chat, and he has a wealth of knowledge. So thank you for being here today, Bill.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Ryan. Definitely excited to be on here. Saw a couple episodes and excited for my turn.
Well, first up, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, your name, where you're from, where you're at today, and maybe what keeps you busy when you're not helping reps and customers.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, Bill Deppen, 27 Technology Group, and how I ended up here was actually prior to this was 15 years at Verizon. Kind of a typical story, what I find in most people. Started off in a retail store, liked what I did, went up to the management channel, and eventually made the switch over to the business channel. And after a couple successful years there, was looking for a change, something different, and ran into BJ on LinkedIn. So, here we are. And now it's, we're going on about a year and a half now with 27 Tech. And again, just being part of the team and enjoying it, watching the team grow into kind of what we are now. I feel like we've doubled in size at least since I started in that short time. So it's been a fun journey so far. And, when I'm not doing this technology stuff, it's between two little ones running around and keeping the family life going, doing my own upgrades in the house. You can see, apologize for the background. It's work in progress as we go, but fun stuff we like to do is we like to do boating in the summer. We get out and do some wake surfing and skiing in the winter time when we get a chance to. It's two little ones trying to teach them. It's we'll just use the word exciting. it's the best that I can say, exciting. Definitely not the same terrain you have out there in Denver, but nonetheless over here in central PA where we are, we get the Appalachians, little mountains, which are probably more suitable for the little ones, I guess.
Yeah, it's a good spot to start, that's for sure. But having been in the industry for 15 years now, you must have seen a lot of changes over the years. What's maybe something that stands out?
When I first started, Android was just coming out. The BlackBerry-era. There was a few Windows devices, so just seeing it back then, the tough challenge then was selling somebody on a data plan for $30 as an add-on for unlimited data, as crazy as that seems, And it was true unlimited back then. It was like, we're gonna limit you, or we're gonna throttle you, or prior to that. None of that was in the industry. It was $30 a day, and it was funny. I remember the way we pitched it was, you buy a cup of coffee for $1 a day and you get data for $1 a day. Check your, that was the sales pitch back then. And then watching Android come into the mix, I was there for the launch of the Motorola Droid, and then the exciting news when Verizon finally got the iPhone, and kind of watching the industry evolve there. And it's different now. I feel like from a device standpoint, it's not as exciting. People aren't excited to be like, hey, I got the latest and greatest iPhone. Some are, but it's not revolutionary when a new phone comes out. Now it's more revolutionary on the data side. We got to see 3G to 4G to 5G, but those are years apart. Where now all the things that are coming into play, as far as we're combining satellites into the mix and bonding different connections together, and just a whole new world of possibilities. That it's not so much on the equipment side. It's focusing more on the technology that's driving how your devices are connected. So exciting, maybe not to the end user, but for myself, and I think this side of the business, definitely more exciting to see what kind of solutions we can come up with.
Yeah, it's just crazy. I mean, the 3G data plans, how slow they were, that was reasonable then, I would say, but what you get for your money now with the new technology, it's mind-blowing, really.
Funny thing is, I always wondered, how could you watch Netflix back then on 3G with an unlimited plan? But today, if I kick back from a 5G plan and I default down to 4G, it buffers and it's all, I can't keep a connection. It's so funny to think of, how was I streaming full on 3G back then? It just, quality of video and everything changes, all the stuff behind the scenes.
It really does. And now we're on 5G, I guess, maybe headed towards 6G. We have homes and businesses. I'm sure you've had a few customers you've helped with this, but running their business internet on 5G.
Yeah, so I look at internet as three different tiers. You have your wire tier, your cellular tier, and now satellite is coming more into it. But in central PA here, at least, it's very rural. So if you get outside of any towns, you're kind of stuck where wired internet is a lot of times non-existent. So what other options are there? Prior to, more recently when we had Starlink and you have that other option, cellular was the only option. So getting creative, even now with the unlimited plans to back before we had them, how can we get a router and stack multiple SIMs in there to make the biggest data plan? Or, hey, I don't have a good signal, but I do out at the barn, so let's put the internet out there, and then we'll get an antenna to beam it back into the house, and just all kinds of crazy technology we've used. And it's more simplified as service got better, but just in the area I live in rural PA, I'm exposed to a lot of that stuff that people are starting to see more and more now, because it's everywhere now.
Yeah, it really is. And just from my side, I've seen more and more, businesses and people just adopting it as their primary or as a very solid secondary for sure. When you're working with a new customer, what does that process look like? What can, a rep expect from you if they bring a customer your way?
Yeah, so a good question. And there's two ways I kind of look at that, because from a standpoint of how I like to help, it's all different kinds of reps. It could be a seasoned rep that I'm just working with for the first time, and that experience is going to be different than maybe a brand new rep to the business. Because we'll start with an experienced rep who is already in the industry and they already know what they want. I kind of like to approach that as, hey, I have the background and I don't like to dwell on it, but I like to let them know, hey, I'm here. I know what's going on your end. If you need any help in the back end, certainly I can do that. If you need any help with the sales side of things or the discovery or the pitch, I can help. Or some reps just like to do that themselves. Like, hey, I got all that. I'm going to sell it and I'm going to throw it to you. And I can pretty much take it anyway. Just give me an introduction and I'll take it from there. Whether you want a warm intro, you want to bring it in and you want to do that warm handoff, or you close it, you get the leads, like, here, call this guy and I'll figure the rest out from there. Really, any part of that or any way the rep wants to bring me in, I'm okay with that. It's usually just knowing ahead of time what it is. So a seasoned rep, it's usually just, here's the deal, take it and run with it. It's still fun for me because on that aspect, I get more discovery. So I get it, and I know it's cut and dry. We're just doing like a rip and replace, where we're replacing what they have. That gives me the opportunity to go in and try and sell more. Like, maybe they need an auto attendant, or maybe there's a phone in an area they didn't think of that they couldn't have before because they couldn't run a wire to it, or whatever the case may be. Or there's somebody out in the field that, hey, let's get a mobile app or a second number. And it's always fun to call those reps back, those seasoned reps that, oh my God, my partner just got me an ad. Like, that doesn't happen, because we've been in their shoes for years and we've done what they've done. So I know what to look for, versus the opposite end where I might get a new rep and I get on a discovery call where they're like, hey, I know of One Talk and they have an old phone system, but where do I go from here, Bill? No problem. Let's get on the call. We'll find out what they have. And to me, there's a lot of ways you can win with One Talk. Everybody likes to start off with price. And don't get me wrong, it's a great place to start because we do win a lot of times in that area, which is totally uncommon for Verizon. So from the Verizon side, that is a lot of people just gravitate toward price. I like to look more, why are we in this meeting? What made you come to this decision to meet with us? Because that's going to tell you, is your phone system old? Do you have issues with it? Is there a pain point? Does it not do something? What is that core reason? And if you get that, that's where you start to see those meetings where it starts off, the customer is, I'm not really sure. And by the end of the meeting, they're smiling, they're happy, they're telling you everything you need to know to make that pitch and win the business. And sometimes they're just throwing their business at you because you developed that rapport, because you found out what the pain point was versus just, hey, we're cheaper. And again, I think all pieces have to come together, but so many people miss that first step of, why are they entertaining this? Like, what are they looking for? Do they even need a new system? And if we find that out first and we can address that, that is almost always going to lead to a complete sale and an easy close versus struggling and what discounts do I get and promotions. You can just get right into the close and move forward with the sale.
That's a great way to look at it, and that's how I look at it too. And I was going to ask, what's it like when you work with a new rep, but you kind of already answered that and what that process looks like. So let's move on to implementation, specifically One Talk. What can a rep, new or seasoned, expect if they bring you into a One Talk deal as far as implementations go? What does that process look like?
So first and foremost, and this is usually where I start with most customers, because I try to take a step back and say, okay, when I was in their shoes and I was a rep, what did I want in a partner? And the first thing I wanted was lifetime support. I want to make sure that when I pass this off, I don't have to touch it again. And I say that with a grain of salt because sometimes I do need some intervention with the rep, and usually I can explain it and give them a roadmap. There is no troubles or issues they have to do, but there might be a task that they might have to process that I can't. But outside of that, it's the idea is once you pass this off to me, I take it. You don't have to worry about them. If a customer is calling them first, I hope it's only because they have rapport with that rep, because I want them to come to me for any questions, any support, any issues they have. And then that frees the rep up, because if I'm looking at it from a rep point of view, they have so many other things to do. It's all the metrics they have to look at, and not only just sales metrics. Did they get enough meetings, and did they make enough phone calls? And it's like, I don't have time to find out why this app is giving me a -24 error and they can't text. Like, nobody has time for that. That's what we do. So on the implementation side, that's the expectation I like to set is we're going to give you lifetime support. From that, it's just leveraging our knowledge and our experience to, one, just get a clean install done where everything's set up, the portal is clean. If in the event I happen to be on vacation, I like to set it up and in the eyes of if anybody else goes in that portal, they can look at it, easily understand. The naming scheme is all very easy to read. The groups are set up correctly, very easy to understand. And then if, willing with the customer, if they want to learn, that's a big important piece of getting them involved so they understand it as well. Whether they want to learn how to use it and change things, or just even look at it and understand the concept of the flow of how it is. If somebody else is to ever go into that portal, they can easily explain, oh, hey, when we call, it does XYZ, and Bill set it up to do this. They're very familiar with at least the call flow, even if they don't know how to, manipulate anything. And then one other piece I like to put on that is, just everybody at 27 Tech, and if anybody on LinkedIn will see, Travis posts this all the time, and it's that account takeover. And what we mean by that is, not only the implementation of a new deal, but when I partner with somebody, I want to be a true partner. So I'm working with you. I want to work with you for all your deals. But then also, if you have anybody older, that you close with another partner, or maybe it's a deal that was already in your territory when you picked it up and they're having issues, don't go find that other partner. You got one-stop shop. I am your partner for everything One Talk. Come to me with anything you have. Just makes it clean and easy for everybody, and just builds that level of support and that trust between yourself, the customer, and the rep.
We've seen that a lot for sure, right? I mean, accounts that just weren't set up right from the get-go. So yeah, I would say absolutely that's an awesome ad for any rep, really. We'll go in, we'll clean it up, and if you're bringing a new customer in, we'll make sure it's set up right from the get-go. So we've all run into this, I think, but tell me about a customer maybe who was skeptical at first, but ended up loving One Talk. What changed their mind?
There's a couple good instances of that. It could be pre-sale stuff. On that aspect, it's maybe they just didn't fully understand what it can do. The opposite also happens where I see it's the paralysis by analysis, because we're over delivering to the customer, where they might need something simple. Hey, somebody calls me and my 3 phones ring and we answer. If nobody answers, then it goes to voicemail. That's all we want. And if you get in too deep into the weeds with, we got an auto attendant, it can do all this, and then, well, did you want the voicemail to go here, or you're scheduling, and it's like, whoa, like now we've gone too deep, and that can kind of scare them away. So I go back to that initial point that I made before, where we're asking, why are we on this call? What do we need to do? And once you understand why that customer is building their phone system, it's going to give you a lot more information, their technical acumen, what they really want the phones to do, so we can kind of hone in on what they need. The other thing that we kind of run into sometimes when, maybe they're not sold on it, is when a partner wasn't involved or another partner was involved that didn't get the job done. And from there, it's a little bit more tricky because you have to build rapport and, why you. So I'm going to lean into my experience a little bit more. Hey, I was with Verizon a long time, set up a lot of systems. I don't cost anything. I'm here to support you. Here's my direct number. Really welcome them in, take your time and listen to them. And then that usually gets people over the hump. Very few times after given the opportunity to explain a solution and a couple minutes to go over how it works, do I ever have somebody that is unhappy with the system or they don't like it. It's just they either have something set up incorrectly, or they were not explained how it works. And once you get those two things taken care of, it's a great system. I mean, it really does pretty much most of what most of our customers are looking for. Very few times do I lose a deal because a system that we can't do what they need to do. Again, there's a few things, so I don't want to say it's the be all end all, but in almost every scenario we can make the system do what the customer needs it to do.
Yeah, and that comes from it's our bread and butter, right? Like we're in the portal every day. You're in the portal every day. We know it inside and out, and if there's a specific challenge a customer has, right? Usually we know a way to make it work. Have you had any customers that used OneTalk in a way that maybe you didn't expect?
That's a good question. I feel like most times it's actually the opposite of that, where a customer might want one scenario and then we end up doing something totally different, after they learn more. I'm trying to think back of all the systems I set up. Did anybody use it in a way that, there's some creative stuff out there, but in a way that I wouldn't expect, I don't think so. It's like I said, it's usually, they are looking for more of a simple setup, and we're taking it and evolving it into something more and making it easy for them. And I think the most common example of this is that auto attendant, because back in rural PA here, people like a live answer. Nobody likes thank you for calling, press 1 for this. No, nobody likes that. It's you want to talk to a human. So I'm always trying to present a phone solution that is going to make that customer's end solution better, and then also help the rep at the end of the day too, because that's an activation. Even though for us it doesn't count for anything, but that's besides the point. It's making the rep and the customer happy. At the end of the day, we're all going to win eventually. So the auto attendant is something that I think we get the most creativity with, because it still enables you to do a live answer, and I can have it come in after 2 or 3 rings if that receptionist doesn't answer, or maybe we only use it for after hours. That's probably the biggest thing I use, and it's quite frequent actually that we do that. But I think you got me on that question. I don't think there's been a time where somebody used it in a manner that I was like, oh wow, that's different. It's usually me saying, oh hey, you can do this, and they're like, oh, I never thought of that. That's awesome. Yeah, let's do that.
You've seen it all.
I wish. It's I will say we have an awesome group, and within the chat, if it's something I haven't seen, I probably read about it in the chat and know how to overcome any of those obstacles. So, that collective, where are we at now? 450 years of experience between us in that chat. It grows faster than I keep up with it. It's crazy.
It's wild. You mentioned old phone systems and customers coming over from those, PBX type on-prem systems. Do you still see a lot of that, in selling OneTalk? And I guess, are there any challenges to bringing those customers over?
Yeah, so that's a good question, and that is still very frequent. I just got off a customer call earlier today that had a PBX, an old Mitel system, and multiple lines. So it's fun and challenging at the same time, because that's going to fall back into, you can't sell on price there, because years ago, I think the system that I was working with today was 16 years old, I think they said. So it was dating itself, pretty far back, but they only had 5 lines of service. So when you look at a comparison to say, hey, we're going to bring in 20 desk phones at $20 a line versus what they're paying for 5 copper lines, we're probably going to be more expensive. But if they were to keep their same setup, like a traditional PBX, and then just keep the monthly cost low, they're in tens of thousands of dollars to replace that with something current gen today. So do I see it? Yes. It's definitely a different approach of how we need to handle that. And some of the big keys that I focus on there is, when you look at the voice over IP world, even your new PBXs are still, in most cases, using VoIP in some way or some way in the back end. So when we look at that, Verizon is not only the switching network, but also the solution itself. So when I'm able to present that to a customer to say, hey, we're the all-in-one solution, most times they already have a cell phone account. If they have a PBX, most times they had a cell phone account. The rep found it upon discovery on a visit. So having that conversation, and I can merge your in-house phones with your cell phones, and then make that more of a seamless process, that's usually how we're able to win those over. And so again, you have to be really careful with price there. You're doing a lot of comparisons with your CapEx versus OpEx. So there's a lot of ways to go about that, and it's just, again, finding where the customer is and why are they wanting to change this. But to answer the question, do I see PBXs? Surprisingly, quite a bit, yes, because people don't like to change phone systems. When they get something good, they're going to stick with it, which, again, is another reason I like OneTalk, because way less disconnects and chargebacks than your traditional phones or other solutions out there.
And you mentioned copper lines, and there's still PBXs out there with copper, right? And we've seen, the cost of a copper line is going up. So I guess, there's an opportunity on that side, right?
Oh, absolutely. It depends on if they got hit with that upcharge yet, which we are seeing that steadily grow. And the other big thing is those lines aren't supported. So their call quality is probably awful. If there's outages, who knows how long it's going to be. It could be weeks that they're waiting for their phones to come back. So there's a lot of, red flags when there's anytime there's a copper line involved. If it's a newer one with like SIP trunks or something like that, and they're running a PBX, it's, again, staying away from price and diving into the solution itself. And that's, again, built into Verizon network, seamlessly allows you to take your office phones and take them on the go, and you get that experience anywhere you are. That's really where you have to take that conversation then. But again, it's finding out what they have and what do they want? Like, what are they looking for? Where's the pain points? And sometimes there isn't any. And, that's goes back to the old Verizon saying, win fast, lose fast. But understanding why a customer wants to talk about it it always has to be the root of any of those conversations.
And I would say, not just that, but the support aspect, right? I mean, there's customers out there with PBXs that were set up, like you said, 15 years ago. I mean, the guy that installed it's probably not around still, but the support aspect, right, from your end.
So the support piece is again, usually where I start if I'm talking to a rep. If I'm trying to talk to a new rep and why use 27 Tech, there's endless reasons why 27 Tech, and we could probably make a whole podcast just on why 27 Tech. But the thing I like to focus on first and foremost is lifetime support, because that is crucial. And then the unique thing that we can provide versus anybody else, because there's other partners that provide lifetime support, so that's not totally unique on its own. But when you look at 27 Tech in the background, as we talked about, that 500 years experience, 15 myself, I've been there. I know what a lot of those issues are. And then sometimes they're not even related to OneTalk. Maybe it's a billing question on their account that's time away from a rep that if they get me involved. They're questions that I'm more than willing to answer, just kind of help that customer where they are. And just having that background, is it something that I pitch and I put out there in the beginning? No, it's that lifetime support's there. And just know that, hey, I have an extensive Verizon background. I'm very familiar with plans, with a lot of issues customers run into, and I can kind of help smooth that over to, put more time back in your day so you can go about selling and logging calls and meetings that we all know you have to do so you don't get yelled at in your next meeting. That's a support piece. So it's not just I'm supporting OneTalk. I'm supporting that rep that I'm partnering with, that to really help free up more of their time.
Yeah, comes down to the true partnership for sure. Has there been a time maybe with OneTalk you had a customer that had a really specific pain point, obscure or not, but or maybe the most common pain point that brought them over that that OneTalk solved that pain point for them? Has there been a specific example that sticks out to you?
A more recent one, yes. So this one is pretty unique because it was actually a big objection as well. And I had a rep go into a company they were pitching OneTalk to, and customer was just totally against it because they knew OneTalk was a VoIP system. They had a VoIP system, and just a terrible experience. They came from a copper line. I can't remember exactly what they came from, but their VoIP system was, again, a no-name something running through another network. Again, I apologize. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I found that the root of their issue was I had them run the Verizon network test to see what it looks like. And it came back with all kind of packet loss issues. And it's like, hey, trying to be a true partner here and help my Verizon person, but at the same time, I like to work with a certain kind of ethical background of, hey, I'm going to tell the customer the right thing, but hey, it's probably not your VoIP system. It's probably your network is the issue. And, we run into that quite a bit. When I look at One Talk in general, if there's any voice issues, drop call, stuff like that, a majority of the time that's due to the customer's network. And that's really not our place. Sometimes we can help out or provide them some settings, but I can't go in and configure their network in a way to work, whether they got to create VLANs or do priority on their phones. A lot of things you can do to help with that, but a lot of these customers don't have in-house IT. They don't want to pay somebody. It's like, hey, I went to my Verizon rep, solve my problem. So it puts us in a weird spot. Like, what do we do? And, this one specific, it was right about the time the T67 came out. And it's like, well, hey, this phone's a little more expensive, but this is the answer to your problem because there's no IT required. And it was after the meeting with that customer, they ended up switching over, gave it a try. It's like, hey, you got 30 days, try it out. If you don't like it, you're not on any contract, send it back, call us what we are, no problem. Customer got it in there. They're like, hey, all this cool stuff that they told me about, now it actually works. My calls work great. And it's like, well, yeah, that was your network. So I'm sorry, I can't fix that part of it. Internally, it worked fine, so they weren't mad about that. But they got their phone system up and running in a manner that they could actually use it and transfer calls and hear each other. So that was great in the fact that, we were able to utilize something that is pretty exclusive to Verizon, which is the cellular-enabled phones. But then I've been able to parlay that in pretty much any time that a rep gets me in where they want me to present One Talk. That is always one of my biggest points that I'll talk about to a customer is, hey, here's all the things we can do, and then I'll show some devices, and then I'll switch over to what's currently the T77. This is the gold standard now. And the reason why, if you have in-house IT, either one, you're good to go, or they're going to love this because they don't have to do anything. They have no configuration. Plug it in and they're good. If you don't have IT, equally as good a conversation because you don't have to find anybody. You don't have to worry about dragging your network down or lost call. Just literally plug it in and you're good to go. And again, that conversation go a million different ways from I want to move my desk across the office to I want to work from home, whatever the case may be. And again, finding out what the customer's pain points are. But the biggest one, I think, is what that network is like because so many customers in our space don't have IT, and that is just such a godsend to have that availability.
That's a huge call out. The LTE desk phones specifically, I've seen them, save or bring deals over for sure, or save a deal or save a customer. But do you usually recommend those, or is there any cases where you wouldn't recommend those?
So, and I'll give my use case as a specific example of why I don't, because I am pretty mobile. It's when I'm in office here, I'll do things across the country. But for some of my local reps, obviously being in the industry so long, I have a lot of local contacts. And when I can, I'll offer on-site installs or even on-site meetings to help with customers. And that puts me away from my desk phone, which I don't want to be unavailable that long. So I was utilizing the mobile app. And unfortunately in our area, I go through a lot of hills and valleys and I'll get some service issues. So I ended up saying, hey, you know what? Let me switch over to second number One Talk on my phone. So now on my phone, I get that preference call quality to the tower, much better experience. However, the downside to that is I can only have one cellular device per phone number. So I can no longer use my T67. So that's a scenario where I'd say, hey, we still need to go back and use an IP phone. And then we'll go through all the things as far as, making sure the network's good and, making sure we have a good footprint to handle that. But again, in most cases at that point, they're probably using their cell phone anyway for a majority of it, kind of like I do. So in some areas, yes, I do recommend that. Obviously, if they have no signal, that's going to be a key one. If you don't have signal in your office, whether it be you just don't have it in the area or your building is kind of blocking that out, not a great scenario to run a cellular-enabled phone. But I'd probably say at this point, 90% of what I get is going to be the cell-enabled phones because it's Verizon's network. It's in most areas or where most businesses are going to be.
That's huge. Yeah. Has there been a deal like where you have a favorite save or a deal or a customer relationship that you almost lost or the rep almost lost, but One Talk, you found a way to turn it around?
A couple times, we've had a couple scenarios, and I've already given one where it's the network itself. Another one is just using the mobile app, and get the Verizon rep from their point of view. If I sell a mobile app, that's a phone ad, and it's an ad to my commissions, and I'm good to go. But in a lot of cases, that's not always the best answer. Some people will try and put it on a tablet for traveling nurses. They have tablets to enter in all their resident info, and maybe they were using personal phones or something of that nature. So the rep saw that and said, "Hey, let's just do mobile app." And it's like, not always the best scenario, because running mobile app itself in that wide of a range is the only option can be a little bit finicky, and that's where I'd probably say a majority of our kickbacks come from when you get your churn that's happening. It's around the mobile app. So making sure that customer knows about the other options. One, to get a desk phone, could be an LTE phone, could be the new W92 cordless handset that a lot of new vehicles have the power adapter in them, so you could use that. That's kind of a far-fetched scenario where I think the easy one is, again, second SIM on your cell phone is a much better experience. So, it's the save usually come from just mishandled installs is kind of where that happens. And then another big one is, like I mentioned before, it's somebody who's coming from paying for 5 copper lines and now they're coming to paying for 20 desk phones. That price hits hard. I just did a church a couple weeks ago here, and they had probably like 30 phones throughout. They needed like 4, so the rep almost lost the deal because they're quoting replacing every phone. And it's like, there's one in the hallway, one in the library, and they're like, nobody's ever in the library. We have one there. So, we asked, and, just going in and finding more discovery. It's like, hey, what phones do we really need, and understanding what their needs were. We didn't get 30 phones, and that's a bummer, but we didn't lose the whole deal. We still came out of it with some phones, customers happy, and it was a win. So, just kind of coming back and understanding what the customer needs, and they have the correct solution for their needs, is always how you're going to save.
At the end of the day, it's a win. What's a customer story maybe that still sticks with you because of, how much OneTalk changed their day-to-day operations?
At a car lot, it was actually 3 different locations that they had. And given the area, it was 3 different providers that they had. And when somebody called, it was the wrong dealership, or they had to go somewhere else. They couldn't transfer it. Like, you literally had to hang up and call the other dealership. And if you're in any sales environment or sales of something, having a customer hang up and call someone else, that's a no-go. That's just destined to say, hey, I'm going to lose this deal most likely because I'm putting it in the customer's hands. So when we brought in OneTalk, they started off looking at it, because this is the way it was presented, as a cost savings, which we did do a cost savings, and that was great. But the thing that they were most excited about was now all 3 locations, they could transfer calls between each other. They could extension dial. They were all one facility, but separate. But they could use it as it was one location. So if somebody called the wrong area, they could just transfer it over. We put an auto attendant in, so if I called the Chevy dealer, but they wanted the Dodge dealer, they could hit 2 for Dodge, and it would just ring, So it just made it very easy for them to meet the customers where they were. And they even came back and they said, like, wow, our customers, when they call in, or they're like, this is a way better experience. So just, it's rare that a customer is going to say that. Like, that's just so obscure. But I don't know if the customers in telecom had an idea, but just to hear that feedback was like, hey, like the thought process we put into this to make sure it was seamless in it. Again, it grew beyond just a call savings. It helped their business work better. That was something else. And then, once they got comfortable using the system, we actually started getting second number on their sales reps, which that was a twofold thing. It allowed their sales reps to be out on the lot and not sitting inside waiting for a phone call, because, somebody's selling cars. They want to be with the customers. Whether they're calling in, they got to be on the phone. If they're driving in, they want to be out in the lot. So how do you do both? This allowed them to do that. So their aggressive reps could, be with the customer where they were. If they were off and they still wanted to get called, they could. But then also, from the business perspective, if that sales rep left and went to a different dealership, well, that wasn't their personal number. They could pull that back, give it to another rep, so they retain that customer. So just a lot of things utilized within OneTalk that grew out of that they came into it to save some money, and they came out of it like, I would have paid double for this system because of how much revenue it put back in our pockets. That's the cool stories that I like to hear, because it's a solution that's growing. We're not just trying to cut costs, which is good. But if you can give them a solution to help them better make money at their business, I mean, who's not going to like that?
That's huge. Yeah, streamlining their operations, right? Losing less sales, and it, I would say, really comes down to you understanding, right, that customer situation, like you said, and doing that discovery, trying to fully understand what their pain points are. Absolutely. Do you have any tells, I guess, maybe like something a customer says or does that makes you think, oh, they need One Talk?
Funny enough, to tell, I'm thinking back to, because more of my meetings now, I mean, I do have some discovery meetings, I'm in those, but more of my meetings now are the customer has already experienced One Talk. It's already been a conversation by the rep that brought it into it. So if I'm thinking back to when I was in their shoes selling, I'm like, hey, this is a good fit. The tell for me was, one, be in the field, because you're going to see what's on their desk, and that right there is 90% going to be your tell. If they have an old phone with a cord that's just strung out, that, I mean, just go on Amazon and buy a cord for $1. But no, they can't even do that. You know, this phone system is just ancient, and they don't want to touch it. That to me is, okay, we need to talk about something different, or, you know, something that's going to be more effective. That's always been, for me, when I was in the Verizon side selling One Talk, you know, being present, being in front of the customer, and seeing what they have. Because, you know, they might tell you one thing, it's hard to visualize what they have, or it's hard to really experience that. But when you see it, I mean, there's scotch tape all over the side of the thing, holding the receiver together. You know, there's all kinds of things. Just basic to an old, you know, C-Tel phone system that just ancient and you know, needs to be replaced. It's, to me, that's the main tell.
Yeah, boots on the ground, you know, prospecting, going in, not just making that call, right? Getting to be in that business and seeing and experiencing, I guess, what their situation is, for sure.
Yeah. The other big one I'll say is, whenever I see people coming in and out of the office with their cell phones in their hands, or they're in and out of the office on their phone, One Talk can almost instantly make that scenario better, because they probably have a phone on their desk and they have a cell phone. So either using both and it's confusing, or they're wasting one of them. And One Talk can put those together, and that's another big win. So again, that's a visual cue that just being and being present helps.
What kind of businesses or industries do you work with a lot and find that One Talk's you know, the best fit, or, you know, maybe the opposite of that?
So in my space, coming from the SMB world, you know, small to medium business, I think that is really the sweet point for me with understanding. Again, I can scale to anything or adapt to anything at this point, but when it comes to hopping into a discovery and talking to a customer, your easy wins, those small to medium customers, again, especially in my area, are the ones that have those aged phone systems. So whether it be the mom and pop's garage, or surprisingly enough, I feel like a lot of my bigger One Talk wins, like size wise, were from smaller cell phone accounts. So just kind of, again, being present in the territory, knowing the size of the building, how many cars are in the parking lot. If you see something larger and you're that local rep and that's your account, but they have like 2 cell phones, but there's a lot of cars in the building, and you know it's not manufacturing, something's off there. So that should tell you, hey, I should take a look at this, because there's more that's happening here. Because there's no way that there's 30, 40, 50 employees in that building and they have 2 cell phones. There's a discrepancy somewhere. So I don't want to say it's any industry specific. I think it's just being aware of your surroundings, because any business can win, again, if you find that pain point. I just think the easiest wins come from, again, in my experience, at 5 to 20 space. You get bigger than that, again, still the right solution. However, it's going to be a longer sales cycle. Now we have to get into, let's quote out what do they really need, and making a decision is probably going to be a longer process. There's more people involved. So again, I don't think any are going to be better than the other, but I could probably win 10 of those 10 line deals quicker than one 100 line deal and be just as happy.
While we're on the topic, of prospecting and sales, do you have any other maybe tips for new reps that, from your experience that would be helpful?
Yeah, so from a partner perspective, like some of the new people we're bringing on, I think getting a base and starting off and getting your name known is paramount. So there's two parts of this. One is you got to leverage your own network and your own network of people that you know within Verizon, and get involved with one or two there, because once you get one or two there, that's going to give you something to talk about. Hey, I did this deal, or I did this, or hey, go ask Joe what I did over here, and I was able to help them, give me a shot. Let me try on your side of the business. So that's one, and kind of getting some experience and getting your name out there and getting exposed to the portal, because coming from Verizon, you may or may not have experience in the portal. Some people do, some people don't. And, we're more than happy to help teach that. But again, there's no better teacher than just experience itself. And then the other side is LinkedIn is a fantastic source, because when I was at Verizon, very few customers I had were on LinkedIn. So I had a very sour taste when I first came over here to LinkedIn, because I'm like, Verizon gave me the gold status and I got the little gold emblem, and this is awesome, but I have like 3 customers that I see that are ever active or ever post anything, and I already have a good rapport with them. So what am I doing here? However, on this side, now it's different, because I know Verizon pays for that subscription. So I know every one of my customers, which are Verizon reps, are already on there ready to go. So being present on LinkedIn, posting often, liking their statuses, just being connected and playing that social media game is huge, because that's going to help get your name established out there. If we flip that and say from a Verizon standpoint, because I work with a lot of teams and with a lot of the things happening at Verizon. If you follow current news, you kind of know there's a lot of change over there. There's a lot of new reps. So advice there for prospecting, be relentless. Don't have any downtime. It's very easy in that role to flip on the TV. Well, I have no meeting set. Nobody's calling me. I have no emails. I'm caught up with all my work. Let me put on TV, or let me play a game. And it's like, you can't do that. You have to be self-responsible to say, hey, all right, I'm caught up now. And, managers are going to push to say, hey, on Wednesdays, we're going to have a blitz day, or hey, this day I want you to do that. But controlling your own business, because even in that role, yes, you're a corporate employee, but that is your own book of business. And you really have to treat it that way, to say, hey, if I'm not busy, I need to be busy with something. And that prospecting part is literally the most important. Because if you're just busy with, garbage work and fixing people's accounts, that's good. It builds rapport, but you're also not selling anything, which at the end of the day, that's what we're all trying to do is get new solutions in customers' hands. Leave that other work to us. That's what we're doing now. As a Verizon rep, get out there, learn your customers, pitch your customers, and sell to your customers. That's really what's going to make the difference.
Wholeheartedly agree. Those are very helpful tips, I would say. As far as objections go, how do you handle objections, or how did you handle objections? And do you have any tips on that?
Yeah, so first and foremost, again, listen to the objection and ask questions about it. So a lot of times you'll get an objection it could go a couple different ways. It could be a legitimate objection where, that's something real. Or it could be maybe they're not ready to buy, so you get a fake objection. And being able to know the difference, and if you don't know, being able to ask questions to understand what their real pain points are. And again, it's much harder after the fact. So if I go into a presentation and I present one talk and I go for the close and I get an objection, if that's something I could have found out earlier, like I mentioned, why are we on this call? What are you trying to achieve here? If I just went into a presentation thinking, hey, if I can save them money because they sent me a bill and I saved them $40 a month, but I didn't solve X, Y, and Z over here, that, hey, the owner is friends with this telecom company who their phones are with, and he doesn't want to leave them. Well, that puts me in a really bad spot at the end of the day when I'm trying to close. So again, asking questions ahead of time and finding out what those objections are, determining if it is a real objection, and again, a previous relationship, like I mentioned, that could be a real objection. And then the thing that kind of gets you around that is just your knowledge and always trying to go for the close, because if you don't close, you're never going to see objections. You're never going to know how to get past them. And there's 100 different objections, and you can usually get past them by asking more questions and finding the root of that. for example, if I just use that example I had there, it's, oh, hey, the owner has a relationship with, XYZ. Oh, great. Does he have a phone system that would do blah, blah, blah? What we talked about, that's going to solve your issue. Hey, trying to think of this scenario. Oh, it was, you had somebody who was out on the road and they needed to get their phones and they were forwarding it and it was their personal phone. Yeah, does the owner's friend have a solution that can handle that? Well, no. Well, and now we can have a more in-depth conversation and we can get to the root of it versus, maybe you lost on price, but they gave you a different objection. So again, it's diving in and asking why before you get that objection. Again, you can't do that in every case because they're always going to come out when they come out. But the more questions you ask and the more knowledge you have ahead of time, the less objections you're going to have on the back end. But even when you get them, just keep asking more questions. It's always more questions.
Yeah, I would say, from my side, an objection isn't a no. It's just an opportunity to clear up a misconception for sure. Maybe some practical tips for reps. So if a rep's talking to a customer about OneTalk for the first time, what's something they should definitely mention? And is there anything they should avoid saying?
Definitely mention, some of those key elevator pitches that Verizon gives you. I think they're key. I like to keep it simple, so basic elevator pitch goes something like, this solution gives your business all the features you'd expect from any other system without being tied to the office. And that kind of ties in, hey, we're a current solution. We have all the features you expect. You can transfer, you can call mass, but we can also merge with your cell phone. But you're saying it in a simplistic way. So again, not going too deep into the specifics of what it can do. Like, oh, hey, we have music on hold. Like, whoa, hold on, back up a second. So that initial thing is have an elevator pitch that's simple, that anybody can understand, and makes it, you can relate to the customer. And then things to avoid, I still got to go back to price. Don't, as many times as we win on price, I hate leading with price because if you lead with price and you are not cheaper, you just put yourself in a really bad spot. Let that be your cherry on the top of your closing if you are cheaper, to help close the deal. But find out all your other objections first. So don't lead with price and keep it very simple. Don't get into details of, even if you're in a meeting and a customer gives you like that golden ticket where it's like, oh my goodness, OneTalk would be perfect for you. Don't sell it there. Let's just keep it easy, ease them into OneTalk, give that easy elevator pitch, go into your discovery and kind of start from there. And it's kind of like any other sale, I'd say. Just don't get too deep into it before you understand what their real pain points are.
I like your point on don't lead with price. Tina mentioned this on our chat, our 27 talk when I was chatting with her. Get a bill, right? Let's see if we can save you money before you promise it, right?
Yep. That is a fantastic tactic that I think a lot of people look at the wrong way. So when I say lead with price, that doesn't mean don't get a bill. That means if you get the bill and you see that slam dunk to say, oh my goodness, they're going to save $1,000 a month if they go to OneTalk, that's great. Keep that, but don't lead with that. Go through the bill and find some of the other things. And if I remember, I believe I did catch a lot of the snippets of that episode where I think she talked about it finds how many lines they might have where the customer might say, hey, we have one line, but maybe they have like 6 rollover lines that they don't know about or they don't realize that are there. Or maybe they have a fax or an 800 number or other pieces of that puzzle that if you just went right into price, you might have missed, and now it's an awkward conversation later. You absolutely use that bill to build your solution that you're going to present to the customer. I think that's a fantastic idea to get the bill ahead of time.
What's a question reps should ask the customer before pitching OneTalk? I know we just mentioned, get a bill, but is there anything else that comes to mind?
I think just keeping it simple here, it's the old KISS method, keep it simple, stupid, and just ask them what are they using for their landlines. That's really where you're starting, and that conversation can go 100 different ways. Maybe they don't have a landline system. I've run into customers that we sold that they were just utilizing cell phones, and by all means that's great. But are there any gaps in the business from that? Or maybe they are using landline and they have a new VoIP, like I mentioned, and their call quality is terrible. Or maybe they have an old phone system. There's a bunch of different scenarios, but kind of starting off with the root, I think that's a good start to the conversation is, what are you using for your for your landline phones in the office and kind of see where it goes from there.
Absolutely. And back to Tina's interview, funny enough, but she mentioned something about that, businesses that started on a cell phone and that is all they're using. And so there's the opportunity then to convert them to the One Talk system if they're at that point, right?
This is my biggest pet peeve. A lot of friends that I have locally, I always harp on this. I see their advertisements come out and I'm like, that's your cell phone number. Like, what are you doing? Like, are you expecting for your business to fail and not do good? And they're like, no, why? I'm like, well, you just gave your personal number as your business number. Like, change that now. Even if you fail, you can get rid of that number. But if if things go the way you want them to and they take off, well, now all your friends and family have to get a new number, or you got to change the number of the business, which we all know you can't change the number of the business once you're established. So, that makes for a really tricky situation. And there's some fun things depending on the size of the business, ways that we can kind of get around that, or make it fun. Like, we can put native dialer on that phone and then forward the calls into a hunt group. So they'll still get their texting on their phone, but then the calls are going into a hunt group because hunt groups are pretty fun. They don't, it doesn't work in a traditional forwarding manner where if I forward a call to a hunt group, and it rings to a phone that's forward, it doesn't ring back. It'll still ring because the call's not technically there. So a lot of reps don't understand the depth of how the system truly works. So you can come up with a lot of really creative ideas. Again, I don't recommend just doing that and starting from scratch, but you can fix a lot of solutions with, again, going back to manipulating the system to do what you want it to do. But yeah, anybody watching this, if you're starting a business, do not use your personal cell phone number. Don't do that. That's a bad idea.
This has all been very helpful and for me anyway, and I've learned a few things and I hope anybody watching has too, but maybe what's something that's the most rewarding part of helping a customer set their system up, or the most rewarding part of helping a rep even?
Yeah, so they're two totally different feelings of appreciation, but both extremely rewarding. That customer, it's usually when you get that system complete, and it could be 100 different reasons of why they're happy. It could be my old system was junk, or I couldn't do XYZ and now I can, and my life is infinitely better. I have more time in my day. I can communicate with my customers. And just being in business myself, because we're all in a way small business owners, even on the Verizon side you are, just being able to help somebody in that term and help them better manage their business is a great rewarding feeling. And what comes from that, they might tell their friends, and that's awesome. But even outside that, just from a perspective of that rewarding feeling, makes me want to keep doing this and getting up, and because there's almost always a way to make a customer satisfied. From the Verizon standpoint, I love that because being in their shoes, I know their challenges, I know what they're running into. So when I can overcome their challenges, or I can make their day better, a lot of times they don't even have to tell me. A lot of times I just know, and that brings me enough joy to say, oh, hey, like, and sometimes they don't even know about it. There could be a customer that had an issue where they were ready to disconnect, and I called the port center and smoothed everything over, and they were good. The rep had no idea they were just about to lose a big sale, and we just fixed it. And I don't even have to bring that up because I don't have to tell the rep. I know I did that, and it's just the fact that they don't get any of those calls that they used to. That's what makes the difference. And again, that's just a really good feel good to say, hey, I just prevented somebody else from having a bad day that I had as a rep. I just prevented that from happening, and that's fantastic. And it's stuff like that's what's going to make that Verizon rep keep coming back to you and use you again, because you understand their pain points. And not only are you helping with the One Talk side and doing what a partner is supposed to do, you're taking it a step farther, and you are being, what BJ likes to call that true partner. I am legitimately helping you in all aspects to make your life easier, so it's a reward on both sides.
I love that. Is there anything, or if there is one thing that you would want every rep watching this to take away, what would that be?
Yeah, so Verizon reps, I would say the one thing that I do want you to take away is at 27 Tech, we do have the background in Verizon, so we understand what it is to be in your shoes. We do have a true partnership mentality where we're going to help you from start to finish in any aspect that you need, whether it be somebody that we set up or somebody we didn't. We're going to go above and beyond in any scenario. If you need routers, we can help you. You need devices for a customer that needs help on that end, we can help you. If it's just anything about the systems, most of us can help you with your internal stuff. So never be afraid to call and ask us for help. We want to be here for you from start to finish. And again, that's what being a true partner is, and that's what we provide at 27 Tech.
All right. Well, if anybody watching this wants to get in touch with you, to work with you, or needs your assistance, I'll tag you on our LinkedIn post here, Bill, but what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Yeah, so you can reach direct on my cell, which is second number one talk, is 570-917-3540. And then you can also reach me at bill@27tech.com.
Perfect. All right. Well, Bill, I'd like to thank you again for hopping on with me today and chatting and sharing your knowledge. And I hope you have a great rest of the day.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, Ryan.